Please welcome Terri Ludwig, President of Philanthropies at Ballmer Group.
Hi, good afternoon, morning, afternoon. We're on the cusp. I stand between you and lunch. That is awesome positioning. I love it. I love it. Actually, it's so energizing to be with you all here today. Following on that panel, it just reminds me that we're in a room full of people that are passionate and energized about public service and about data, and ultimately to get something done on the ground, as this panel just reminded us. So let's talk about that. How do we get something done? Because when I lose sleep at night or think about what inspires me, I think about this data point, that there are 13 million kids in our country that live in poverty. Those are real kids. They're in our communities. They're struggling daily for food, for shelter, for safety, for a good school. And you represent the possibility that they will have a fair shot at moving up. So many of you know me from my previous life. I was CEO of Enterprise Community Partners, and I worked on affordable housing for the last decade. We saw housing as a critical first step in the pathway to opportunity. But boy, oh boy, we sure learned quickly that housing and shelter alone was not enough. We worked closely across sectors, health, transportation, education, and jobs, because these issues we know are deeply interwoven for people who are experiencing poverty. For those of you who heard the first panel, you heard Mayor Bynum talk about the health inequity. From one block or 2 blocks away, you could see a difference in 10 years in life expectancy or 20 years. To me, it just reminds me of one of my board members who used to say, it has been shown that your zip code is more important than your genetic code in predicting life expectancy. What does that tell you about the places that we're growing up and that how we need to work across sector? It is vital. So as a practitioner, my day-to-day job was to connect those dots to solve problems and go deep in communities. So now I'm super excited to bring this perspective to my new role in philanthropy. I joined Ballmer Group as president earlier this year. I'm inspired by Connie and Steve Ballmer, who are our founders, and their belief that every child deserves a chance at a better life. Connie's an activist and has deep experience in child welfare. And I think it's fair to say that Steve is a data guy because he was the former CEO of Microsoft. But importantly, they truly embrace the complexity of economic mobility. That's why they support the work across many life stages, starting with a safe birth, a stable childhood, a good education, and a career with a living wage. And at every stage, they focus on inequities based on race. You'll hear a lot about this in just a few minutes from Raj Chetty, who'll talk about this data. But Connie and Steve are motivated by the fact that if you're born poor in the United States, chances are high that you will remain poor, and they're much higher if you're Black. So at Ballmer Group, when we think about our values, I just want to say the good news for me is that we're deeply aligned with Results for America and with all of you in this room. 2 of these values really stand out to me. First, we believe that government is the biggest driver of any change. Government spends $1.3 trillion every year to help people in areas like health, housing, nutrition. That's not even counting the education budget. Government must be central to any change process. Second, we believe that data is critical for effective decision making. Data helps us challenge assumptions, determine goals, and measure progress. These shared values are behind our investment in the Economic Mobility Initiative and the outstanding mayors that you heard from earlier today. Which brings me to what I want to focus on today. You are all experts in economic mobility, all working on wickedly hard problems. But we have to acknowledge a simple truth. The factors keeping people in poverty today are so big and so complicated that no single organization, no single system can take them on. no matter how great we are at collecting and using data, government can't do it alone. That's why at Ballmer Group, we believe communities are powerful agents of change. When people from different fields, including government, work together, it makes the whole system smarter. Now, by working together, I do not mean sitting around in a meeting admiring a problem. I do not mean that. I mean a very deliberate exercise. Some people call it collective impact or weaving or a community-based partnership. But it is a very specific way of working within a community, and there are 5 elements that are important to make this work. First, partners from many sectors come together. Second, they align around a common set of goals with specific metrics. Third, one organization serves as a backbone to hold these threads together. Fourth, they use data to track progress and continuously improve. And fifth, they shift dollars and improve policies to support what works. So what does this look like on the ground? One of the first things I did when I joined Ballmer Group, I said, let's get out there. Let's see this work in action. And so earlier this year, I visited Dayton. And that was before the shooting tragedy. So as an aside, just sending my respects and deep respect for Mayor Nan Whaley and her leadership and how she's worked with community partners to respond to this senseless violence. And I know Shelley Dickstein, I think you're in the house, the city manager in Dayton. So we really salute you and for all you've done. So on the ground, I can tell you something special is happening in Dayton. Through an initiative called Preschool Promise, they are making sure that every 4-year-old in every neighborhood has access to a high-quality preschool. And the way they got there kind of blows my mind because it shows that this work takes you in directions you may not have expected to go when you start. Because this story starts in 2010 when a group of partners came together to put that 5-point plan into place. These partners included city and county government, as well as philanthropic, business, nonprofit, and civic leaders. And they set a goal. 60% of Montgomery County's workforce will have a college degree or high-quality credential by 2025. And they identified their 7 steps along the way, starting with getting kids ready for kindergarten. To measure progress and hold them accountable, they formed a backbone organization called Learn to Earn. Well, it turns out that if you're looking for your later workforce, you need to start with kindergarten. Actually, you need to start before kindergarten. You need to make sure that kids are ready for kindergarten because it impacts their ability to read in the 3rd grade and keep up with math in the 5th grade and all the way down the line. Digging further into the data, they realized the sticking point in building an educated workforce was actually access to high-quality preschool, especially in low-income communities where almost nothing existed. But that takes money. So Mayor Nan Whaley embraced this challenge. She worked arm in arm with county government and all the other Learn to Earn participants to support a ballot initiative. And in November 2016, voters overwhelmingly approved an increase in city income taxes for education for the first time in 20 years. The results? In Montgomery County, 10 of 16 school districts are already seeing more students ready for kindergarten. And Dayton Public Schools saw an increase of 6%, an outstanding jump in just a single year. Preschool Promise is now a national exemplar for early childhood education. So Robin, are you out there? It's a shout out for Robin Lightcap, who's the executive director. Where's Robin? Woo! A lot of awesome work over a long time, and I probably shouldn't be telling your story, but I'm honored to do so. So one of the things I also want us to think about is Dayton is also a national model in fighting addiction. That is no coincidence. This skill can be applied for any problem. In 2017, Dayton was considered the epicenter of opioid fatalities, with nearly 400 deaths in the first 6 months alone. So they created a community overdose action team and applied the same deliberate approach that they had used in early childhood education. They set common goals, let data drive decisions, and adjusted as needed to continually improve. Some of the partners were the same, like the city and the county, and they added others, like the criminal justice system and the police. The result? Overdose deaths plummeted by 2/3 in 1 year. Awesome. I'm struck by the courage and the durability of this approach, and there are examples from all over the country where governments are securing wins by locking arms with community partners. In fact, I was just in Tacoma, Washington, like 2 weeks ago, and there's a movement there called Graduate Tacoma. You may be familiar with it. But they've boosted the high school graduation rate from 55% to nearly 90%, while making huge progress in addressing disparities based on race. I could go on. Dallas, Salt Lake, Spartanburg, Memphis. It works in the Rust Belt. It works in the Pacific Northwest. It can work in your communities. So as I close, let me just say again, at Ballmer Group, we do believe in the power of government to affect change, but the problems around poverty are so interconnected, so our solutions must be too. Government can't go it alone, so I call on you today to really think about how you can put communities at the center of your practice. Every time you dig deep to focus on the data, ask yourselves, do we have the right data? Do we have all the right voices at the table? My hope is that you will build on your amazing work to include a broader set of community partners, nonprofits, companies, philanthropies, and please share your stories so that we can learn and replicate and build best practices. Ballmer Group is working with partners right now on that. And I know from experience, it's not easy to embrace such complexity. But for those of us taking on economic mobility, it's worth the effort because every child deserves a shot at moving up. Thank you, and enjoy the lunch.